I'm Josh. I'm the founder and CEO of CoolStreet, and we're building EV chargers for places that are really difficult to put them today. Think on the street for street-side charging, or near apartment buildings or parking garages, multifamily situations. And if you've been following along for a while, you'll know that we started off with a series showing our development progress so far. We started with what we call the Mark I, the first generation. We went to Mark II, Mark III. We have Mark IV here behind me. So where's Mark V? And I'm going to get into that today. This will be a little bit of a story of failure-ish, although I kind of want to show you why failure, or what appears to be failure, isn't always failure. And then at the end, I want to give you a little sneak peek of where we're going with the Mark VI. So a little background on where we came from up to this point. I live in a situation where we all park on the street. And for me to drive an EV, the ideal scenario is to charge in front of my house. And back when I started, there was not a charger that accomplished that well. And you say, well, what about all those chargers behind you? And yes, they're great if you have a garage or a driveway, or you can put it on the side of your house and run it out to your car. However, in my context, in front of my house on a pretty nice street, I did not want to have unsightly cables hanging out. I also wanted the thing to be pretty inconspicuous. And so the idea was, could we just put the charger in a post like you see in this Mark IV and attach the cable to it separately? It wasn't a completely novel idea. They already do this in Europe and a lot of the other parts of the world. But in the US, it hadn't been done at that point. And so I plowed ahead with that. Now, when I started using it over 4 years ago now, it was amazing. I realized this works really, really well. It looks super, super nice, super sleek, super compact, as you can see. And I felt like I had solved the problem. I need to keep pushing forward on this and try to get it to more people. So this was the whole series of videos up to this point, up to the Mark IV, was kind of stepping through that progression of iterations as I learned about chargers, as I learned how to design chargers and build chargers and build the business around it. I first started out with using a J1772, which is our charging standard in the US up until NACS took over. And this will get us into the Mark V, because the Mark V was envisioned as an iteration on this Mark IV. The charger sits in the post, has a socket for your cable, but the Mark V had a NACS or a Tesla connector on the socket. And that was because I saw us going towards that. So that was going to be the Mark V. And you can see I actually built some things in CAD. I started on the electronics design. It was a more streamlined design. We had a socket that plugged straight onto your PCB. And then we obviously had the NACS port built onto it. As we got ready to jump into the Mark V, my thinking on the business, on the charger itself, changed considerably as we eyed a new direction that we could go in. I had been kind of struggling to see how we're going to make money only selling chargers to people who park on the street. And the reason for that is kind of obvious if you think about it. The big challenge here isn't necessarily getting power there. All the houses along the curb have power, so we can run power out, we can run it to the post, we can meter it out of here, we can kind of do an Airbnb style thing with our neighbors where we sell power to each other, and our application does the billing and handshaking in between. No, the big challenge was going to be going to each and every city that somebody wanted to put a charger in front of their house and getting the permits, working through that whole system with a customer of one, which meant our customer acquisition costs were going to go really high, at least in the foreseeable future. So we needed to have a way to potentially sell this thing, the same product, into another market in parallel. Now, we're still street-based, it's still in our name, and we really want to help people meet that challenge, but that can't be the only way we make money. So I looked at that, and me and my partner, we said, well, let's do something different where we actually create a modular system where we have the charger in some electronics in a large box in the house, and then we have a socket that you can put anywhere. And the reason that this was kind of unique and special was that we could suddenly use this product in, say, parking garages really effectively, which leads us into multifamily charging situations where you could have chargers in a cabinet feeding a whole bunch of sockets downstream and everybody plugs their cables in, kind of analogous to plugging in our devices today into regular household outlets. And in fact, that socket was going to be about the size of a standard electrical outlet. So I started down this path of socketized, a separate socket from the main electronics charging. And you can actually see that here behind me. We have an electronics box over here, and then here's a socket, and those are electrically coupled for some testing that we were doing. I spent a ton of time on that socket, and I'm sure I'll get into some videos on all the many prototypes we've built. We started off trying to fit it into a regular dual gang outlet box, and then we progressed from there into using a standardized box, which actually was a way for us to save some money in our development where we could use a standard box. We didn't have to do as much injection molding. We eventually went from NACS to the Mennekes Type 2 connector, which is what they use in Europe and is what SAE is kind of standardizing on in the US as well. We built the electronics. We started building out our software, our application. We had communication between our main charger and our socket. That was difficult to do. Had to run extra wires there, back and forth between the two. And then we got into other things like how do we lock the cable onto the socket? And how do we do this in a really compact package? And so there was all sorts of design and development work. It was miniaturization of trying to take all of this mechanical hardware, including our actuators, shrink it down to this little box and do something that can be reliably run. And I will say we were quite successful at it. My partners and I, in particular, one of our newer partner, Kelly, he really helped with the software. And it was really cool to see how we could actually get the socket talking to the charger. We did a whole bunch of lighting effects. I believe that was the last video I did. However, it became increasingly obvious to me as we went along this process that this system was getting a little out of hand. Everything that you can reduce in complexity has huge savings, both in just the amount of development that you have to do, but also in the cost, the number of parts, and the installation in this case. And if you add a little bit of complexity, it can very quickly balloon kind of out of control in unforeseen ways. For instance, installation. You wouldn't think that having a separate charger box in between your breaker and then a socket downstream really adds that much in complexity. You got to run pretty much the same amount of wires, but you got to splice it in the middle, and then you just got to run some comms wires from that second box to the outlet. In practice, when you go and start installing these systems, which I was doing, you start to see that that little change has compounded the installation quite a bit. Your conduits need to be bigger. You have to have special cables to go through them. You now have 6 wires coming from the charger to the socket instead of 3 the whole way from the breaker. It added a lot of steps that you could really get rid of before with the charger right at the socket. The other thing was reliability. Now we're communicating signals between a charger and a socket. And since we're connecting these with some wires, can we ensure that that reliably connects back and forth all the time? If we lose signal there for some reason, the whole system goes down. And so there's a lot of reliability concerns in separating your charger from your socket. And there's a whole other myriad of things that go along with this. You now have multiple parts to your system, whereas before you kind of just had one part. And I could see this ballooning and ballooning. Ultimately though, in late 2025, we were approached by an industry veteran who really saw the need for our product and really wanted to kind of encourage us to push it out to other people. Build something that we could sell to people directly, or we could sell to vendors, to distributors, to charge point operators as a product for them, because what we were building did not exist anywhere else in the North American market. That was really the moment we decided to fundamentally change our architecture away from the 2-part solution and back to something like the Mark IV, an integrated charger socket solution. Now, we knew this would be a lot harder. What he was proposing was something a lot more advanced than we were originally going to release. This would have to have full integration with all future standards, things like plug-in charge, ISO 15118, which can do vehicle to X or vehicle to grid, vehicle to home, and cellular mesh networks, all of these other features that we would be building into the charger from the get-go. Not that they would all ship with this, but we would have that capability to put it into all of them so we could sell into more markets. And we'd have to fundamentally redo the design of the charger. We wanted to add some features to make it really easy to install, really easy to maintain. Even if an electrician wasn't around, they could maintain this thing. They could send it out for replacements. So it will be harder, but I'm confident we have what it takes. We brought on a third co-founder with Kelly. He is leading up all of our software efforts. He's been doing a really amazing job with that. We have 2 advisors now. So Nicholas, who's the industry veteran I mentioned, and Rob. And we've also begun to take in a little bit of investment. So we have some capital to go and start doing the steps that we need to do to get this through certification and then into manufacturing. Now, as for the Mark 5, yeah, it's just gonna live in our CAD files. I would say it's really a step that got us to where we are. There's so much of what we're doing on the Mark 6 today that was really informed through the steps and the processes and all the design work that was done on the Mark 5, on those sockets, on the way that we build it, on the way we integrated things. So much of that is being carried forward into the Mark 6, and I'm excited to begin showing you all of those little tidbits of how that thing is built. So where are we going from here? Well, we are currently testing the Mark 6. We're building out some more prototypes to do some beta testing. And then from there, we'll be going into our pre-production prototypes, certifications, manufacturing, and we plan to have product out in the wild by the end of this year. So how can you get involved? Well, I'd love to communicate and talk with you a little bit more. If you do park on the street and you're looking for a charger that could be used there, feel free to reach out. You can find a sign-up sheet on our website, coolstreet.com. We're also looking for partners in the EV world. So this could be distributors, installers, charge point operators, people who work with charge point operators, software vendors. We're really seeking to speak to as many of you as possible, so feel free to reach out. I'll put my email down in the description, and you can also go to our website and fill out some forms there. And if you don't fall into any of those buckets or you want to see how else you could help, feel free to reach out to me and I will get back to you. Stick around for some more videos. I am working to get this out on a more regular schedule because boy, do we have a lot more to show you than what I've covered today.